Hello and welcome back to Salute Your Sports. It's Kamenev here with Tom Castleman. It's our Super Bowl preview, and it's going to be a special show. The NFL season feels like it flew by. This last week has dragged by. Can we just fast forward to the big game already? I cannot wait, Tom. I am super, super pumped. We're going to break down all the matchups 7 days away, recording on a Sunday afternoon. Who's got the better offense? Who's got the better defense? Who's got the better special teams, the intangibles, the coaching, and ultimately, who wins the big game and the Super Bowl MVP? We'll talk about some fun Super Bowl props, foods, and more, betting locks of the week, sports trivia statements of the week. May even address a blockbuster NBA trade last night involving the Lakers and Mavs, Luka Doncic, Anthony Davis. Man, so much great sports stuff going down. But of course, Super Bowl is the big one. It is always the biggest story in America here. Got my Mahomes jersey. You can already know which way I'm headed. If you watch this show or listen to the show for the last 3 years, you guys know every single year I pick the Chiefs. And until proven otherwise, there's really no reason to believe anything else. I can't wait to get started, Tom. How are you doing on this last Sunday before the Super Bowl?
I'm doing fantastic. I think you're selling yourself short with the 3 years. I can't remember a time since the year 2020, maybe even
Yes,
2019, that you have not picked the Chiefs
you're correct.
to win the Super Bowl. Which, of
I think
course,
I'm
in
like three
aggregate,
for five so
yeah, pretty
far.
much. If you're tailing the Chiefs, you have done very very well for yourself
Yeah.
over the past more than just few years. But yeah, it's going to be an incredible game, a rematch of a Super Bowl 2 years ago, which was an absolute fantastic game to watch then as well, as we saw an established quarterback in Patrick Mahomes, and at that time, a little bit of an up-and-coming quarterback in Jalen Hurts, where we all knew the dual threat ability, but could he really show that he was a good passer? And that was a game where he ran for 3 touchdowns, courtesy of the tush push writ large, the brotherly shove just for Philadelphia, but also threw for 300 yards. So this is a guy that kind of came into his own a couple years ago, and now these two quarterbacks are meeting again in the Super Bowl. And not just the quarterbacks. I mean, there are a lot of familiar faces in this arena, and a couple of new ones as well. Some that may be the difference makers. As a quick recap on the full season, going back to the preseason comment, you and I will share the load on this one. We were each 50% right about who was
Yeah.
going to be the Super Bowl representative. Of course, I've been on the Eagles all season long. You have been on the Chiefs. So let's get right into it. I mean, we already started with the quarterbacks. That is going to be the most important position that is discussed, as it pretty much always is.
Always.
But certainly not the only significant one, as we're talking about two very, very good offenses. Eagles, of course, all season long have been a top offense. The Chiefs, they've had their spots hit and miss, but they are coming into stride at the perfect time
They
to
always
be
do,
achieved.
Tom. They
That's
always
exactly how
do.
it goes. And so we've seen them kind of incorporate a rookie weapon in Xavier Worthy at wide receiver, who had a big bang blast onto the scene in the season
X.
opener.
X.
Kind of has had up and downs, which is to be expected with a lot of rookie receivers. It's very, very rare that we see a rookie wide receiver be amazing and consistent throughout an entire season. So there have been some ups, some downs, but he was a huge part of their win against the Buffalo Bills in the AFC Championship. Flipping it over to the Eagles side, of course, Saquon Barkley, outside of Jalen Hurts, or maybe even more than Jalen Hurts, gets the credit for being an amazing player. So, comment. I'm going to flip it over to you now as far as who do you think has the edge on offense? Go stats if you want, go individual players, go unit by unit. That's probably how I'm going to be breaking it down, quite frankly, especially with the Super Bowl. We can get a little bit more into the nitty gritty about these offenses and these defenses and where the edge is, not just writ large on each side of the ball, but maybe even unit by unit.
Yeah. I mean, first off, Saquon Barkley is the one guy that has me not able to sleep at night as a Chiefs fan because that dude, Saquon, is spectacular. He is, probably the best player in the league this season in the NFL. I mean, he's not going to get the MVP because, it's a quarterback award. We know Mahomes is, the best player, period, because he always shows up in the playoffs. It's like the same guy's not getting an MVP every year. Same guy's going to have some off games. There will be some injuries, etc. But gosh, Saquon is so good. But a lot of my analysis on this like, offensive matchup is going to be like eerily similar to what I said last week. I mean, I'll start with the passing games. I think, as good as Jalen Hurts is, still a little bit banged up, looked good last week, but didn't have to do all that much passing the ball necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Did have some wide open receivers as well, making life easy on him. I think Mahomes is clearly the better quarterback. That's not a knock on Jalen Hurts. For me, he's in like that second tier, that 5 to 8 best quarterbacks in the league. But I think Mahomes, definitely a better passing quarterback. You look at their numbers, the Chiefs actually did average more passing yards a game this year than the Eagles did. It's kind of like, it's interesting though, because I think Mahomes is the better quarterback. These Chief weapons, Worthy, Brown, they're getting more established. I think the Eagles still have better receivers though. You look at, obviously A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith are terrific. But overall, I'm going to give the edge to the Chiefs when it comes to passing because they have number 15, Patrick Mahomes. He always delivers. He's a guy that I'll give you one, Tom. You mentioned last week, you and I talked about this, Vic Fangio, quite possibly the best defensive coordinator in the game. Him or the guy on the other side, Spagnuolo for the Chiefs. As good as Vic Fangio is, Tom, and this is why I believe that the players play the game. He was the defensive coordinator for the Dolphins last season. Mahomes shredded him twice. Previously, the coach of the Broncos, Mahomes shredded him a million times. So, that's the matchup within the matchup. Can the great coach come up away with the scheme against, the great offensive player? So far in Vic Fangio's career, he's had an answer for just about everybody except for Patrick Mahomes, because Mahomes has his number in a big, big way. So passing game edge to the Chiefs because of Mahomes. Worthy, you mentioned ups and downs. Very few downs the back half of the season. I think it was earlier in the season. He's come on as a receiver. He's running more routes, not just the screen passes, the deep balls. He can run, a slant, a comeback route. Now he's become a complete receiver. Hollywood Brown looked really good last week against the Bills, especially early in the game. He's kind of hitting his stride. I know Kelsey had an off game against the Bills, but I mean, you think Kelsey's going to have 2 off games? I don't think so, Tom. I like the Chiefs passing attack a little bit overall. On the running side, I mean, I think it's obvious the Eagles have the edge. Both offensive lines are pretty good. Very good, I would say, actually.
Yeah.
But the Eagles' offensive line is like top good. So I do think the Eagles have an edge on the O-line. They do have a clear edge at the running back spot. I mean, Saquon is the best in the game. The Kareem Hunt, Isaiah Pacheco 1-2 duo, probably about average in the NFL, maybe a little bit above average. Samaje Perine, third down back, had that winning catch against the Bills too. Certainly a respectable run offense for the Chiefs, but you look at the Eagles run offense, and now not only Saquon Barkley, the quarterback, Jalen Hurts is a really good runner as a quarterback. Even Kenneth Gainwell does a pretty good job coming in there when they need him. I mean, DeAndre Swift and Miles Sanders were top 5 rushers in the league with this Eagles offensive line. So, you look at this, Tom, you know what this is. This is a sheet of paper, right? This is what,
Sure.
You look at the games, you look at the matchups, you look at, we call it on paper versus, how it's played on the field. And I think, on paper, the passing games are close. You give the advantage to the Chiefs, fine. On paper, clearly the Eagles have a better running game. You look at the statistics for the cumulative season. I mean, if we're talking about paper, the Eagles have a better offense on paper. But I think there's something to be said, and I don't know if it's one of those flip the switch, turn the clock on, but you just in the playoffs, we talked about his numbers last week with Mahomes. It just feels like game on the line, whenever you need something in a game that's really, really close, Mahomes is always going to deliver. This was the whole storyline. The Chiefs haven't had 30 points a game all year. 29, 27 multiple times. Obviously, those games against the Steelers and Texans late in the season, had they not been running clock at the end, they would have got the 30. Guess what? When they needed to get 30 points, they got it. They owned that Bills defense too, by the way, Tom. I know that, a lot of drama in that game, very, very close game, but if the Chiefs didn't fumble earlier in the game, that could have been like so much worse. Just kind of like a fluke phantom fumble. It wasn't even cost by the Bills. That was the only way the Bills were going to stop Kansas City, like a fumble or a penalty, because their offense was doing whatever the heck they wanted against the Bills. So to me, like, who do I trust in the Super Bowl with the game on the line? Because Jalen Hurts, as talented as he is, speaking of ups and downs, he's had ups and downs. And
Mhm.
it's the same situation as last week. The matchup within the matchup. The Chiefs are not going to stop Saquon. No one's going to stop Saquon. What they will do, though, is they're going to stop the 40, 60-yard running plays because that's what the Chiefs defense does. They're a very good team stopping the run. So Jalen Hurts will have to beat them with his arm in this game. So to me, Tom, it's a virtual wash. Again, on paper, I would say the Eagles definitely get the edge, but in the mix of like, who do you trust in a must-win game? Which quarterback, which offense do I trust in a must-win game? Because the Eagles are one of those teams where if these teams play 100 games, the Eagles definitely have a better offense. But I think we've seen the Eagles' offense against some of the better teams not show up. And here's a classic stat for you, Tom. It's
Mhm.
something I saw on social media about a month ago. This is players' numbers, quarterbacks versus playoff teams versus non-playoff teams. And there's three quarterbacks ever that have a better passer rating against teams that are playoff teams as opposed to non-playoff teams. It is Patrick Mahomes, Joe Montana, and Warren Moon. So Mahomes plays better against the better defenses. It's like he knows that. The Niners, great defense all these years, have not stopped Patrick Mahomes. So call it whatever you want. I know you're going to go with the Eagles, but to
Mhm.
me, in a situation like this, with a 2 week, to get ready, especially, there's stats which I love, and there's trust factor, and I trust Patrick Mahomes a whole lot more than I trust Jalen Hurts personally, who I still am not convinced is fully healthy. By the way, Tom. So, well, I'll call it a wash. Maybe I'll go Chiefs just to be different. But I know my head says Eagles on paper because of the running game. But this
Mhm.
is definitely one of those matchups that is a lot closer than it looks because this is a different Chiefs team late in the season. It's a different Chiefs team with different weapons and a different setup. And it's one that the Eagles, Vic Fangio, have not stopped. I haven't seen it yet. So let's see what they can do against that Chiefs offense.
Well, I mean, Vic Fangio also hasn't had this Eagles defense in those stops, and we saw that those defenses that he was managing not at the same level after he left. But I mean, I'm going Eagles, and I don't even think it's especially close. I mean, obviously, Kansas City has the better quarterback, and there's no debating that in my opinion. I think Jalen Hurts fits really well with what the Eagles like to do, and that's a big part of their success. But outside of the quarterback position, I don't really see an advantage for Kansas City at any of the other groupings. I mean, the Eagles had literally on Pro Football Focus the best offensive line in the NFL. So clearly, I'm going to go with them on that. And I mean, it's not even just on paper. I mean, the Eagles seventh in the NFL in scoring this season. They have proved it on the field as well. Of course, as much as it's clearly Patrick Mahomes is a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts, I think that's a closer margin than Saquon Barkley being clearly better than any running back that the Chiefs have.
That's probably true.
And it's been a testament to the Chiefs' offensive line, which is no slouch either. It's not a complete landslide. It's just I think the Eagles have a clear edge there. The Chiefs have had a really good job, or done a really good job rather, of taking a running back like Kareem Hunt, who's not the same level of athlete, not the same level of running back, and still making an effective running game. Having an effective running game isn't necessarily always about getting the yards; it's about having the commitment to it to at least have the threat. Because if you're going to turn this into Patrick Mahomes against the Eagles defense, that's going to be problematic. It's going to be really, really important for the Chiefs to maintain that play call balance at least a little bit. So that's not just a fantastic Eagles defense teeing off on the Chiefs quarterback, and then of course the wide receivers. Xavier Worthy, Marquise Hollywood Brown, Travis Kelsey. I mean, really good weapons to have, but I don't think they match the same level of receiving options of AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, especially with Travis Kelce. Not necessarily struggling, I would say, but it's clear that he is a focal point for defenses to take him out of that game because they know that's the primary connection. If you can take away Kelce in the middle of the field, I mean, it's not it's folly to think that by taking away an option you're going to limit Patrick Mahomes. But if you can at least say, okay, we're going to put all of our attention on this one matchup, and we're just going to try to trust our guys on the outside to win a couple of these matchups downfield. That's kind of what this defense is going to be doing against the Kansas City Chiefs. So I think that, pass catchers, slight edge to Philadelphia, running back and offensive line advantages to Philly, advantage quarterback for Kansas City, and that's no small part. But this kind of feels a little bit like the Tampa Bay Super Bowl, where we went into that thinking, okay, they've got Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, that's going to be great. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in that Super Bowl were better in a bunch of other categories, and that ended up winning in the aggregate. And I kind of feel that might be a little bit of a sense here with the Philadelphia Eagles offense as well.
I'll go a little flip that, use the same argument you're making and flip it a little bit more on its side. First off, again, that Bucs Super Bowl, Chiefs had 2 starting offensive linemen get injured within that playoff session. I think it was Mitchell Schwartz, Pro Bowler, got hurt not long before the game. So I think that game would have looked so much different had the Chiefs offensive line been healthy. But I'll flip it that way. You talk about weapons overall in offense. The Eagles have the ultimate weapon in Saquon. They have Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert. But the Chiefs have the better 3rd, 4th, 5th guys. I'm not saying these guys are amazing, but Juju Smith-Schuster has been sneaky sometimes, played well in the Super Bowl a couple years ago against that Eagles team. I think there's certain moments, again, like if it's Kelce and Worthy and Juju, but then there's other guys on that team that randomly come up with some plays on that offense. Noah Grace had some random moments. Watson could get a deep ball anytime. DeAndre Hopkins, obviously, not necessarily the kind of player he was a few years ago, but he's a super talented guy. He's a big, tall receiver. I think that's something that the Chiefs are going to use him because Eagles corners are great. Not as big, not as tall as a Juju, as a Hopkins. Some of these Chief guys can get physical. Again, I would say that the Eagles' top options are better, but I would argue that the Chiefs have a little bit more diversity because I think of it this way, Tom. Personally, Trent McDuffie is an absolute beast. He is the most underrated player in the entire National Football League. I think he's going to neutralize Devontae Smith or A.J. Brown, whoever he's on. One of those Eagles guys is going to be neutralized. Nick Bolton, he can cover Dallas Goedert at the tight end. All of a sudden, the Eagles end up having maybe one option at receiver that's going to be easy to get open. It's going to be a little bit trickier than it seems with those lack of that 3rd, 4th, 5th guy. Because against a lot of teams, the Eagles can get away with run it to Saquon, throw it to A.J. Brown. That Chiefs defense is different. And we'll get right into the defensive side here in a little bit.
Yeah, but I mean, it's nice to have depth and all these options, but with 5 offensive linemen and the quarterback, you're getting all of 5 people on the field, and I'll take the Eagles' top 5 over the Chiefs' top 5. And in any combination of pairing you want to do. I mean, you got Brown, you got Devontae Smith, you got Saquon, you got Goddard right there. And then, whoever that 5th person is, whether it's Jahan Dotson, whether it's...
who has, one catch the last, 15 games or something.
Caught a touchdown against
Green Bay. Jahan Dotson has been nowhere to be seen, Tom.
I think that you can make the depth argument, but if it's the Super Bowl, you're not worried about guys being fresh for another game after this. You just take your studs and you ride them out.
Though, for the Chiefs, though, the last time the Super Bowl happened, Sky Moore got a touchdown. They had Kadarius Toney get a touchdown. I know we'll talk about the coaching edges in a little while. Andy Reid could scheme some of these secondary guys, and it's what the Chiefs always do. How do they always win, Tom? Because somebody always steps up. There's always a Chief player that steps up in these games. There's always a somebody that is a nobody that becomes a somebody. They always find a way in these crazy close playoff games, these
Those that
17 straight one-score
I'm
games they
hearing different
won.
categories. I'm hearing intangibles and coaching. We're talking about pure offense
Okay.
on this one.
I'm just telling
I
you,
think
the Chiefs have more total options. If Travis Kelce goes down, it's not as bad as A.J. Brown going down to the Eagles for me.
yeah, these days, yeah,
So,
yeah.
anyway, let's
Flipping
talk
it
about
over,
defense.
let's talk about defense. I mean, I know where I'm going with this one. I'm also going Eagles again, number one in the NFL this season, and they've been pretty darn good in the postseason as well. You talk about a defense that has playmakers at every single level. I mean, you can state out the names on both sides. I mean, you've got Chris Jones for the Chiefs, you got Jalen Carter at that same position for the Eagles, but I think that where the Eagles have the advantage is they just have so many players who are having individually great seasons. I mean, Bonnet, middle linebacker, he's up for Defensive Player of the Year. You've got not one but two rookie defensive backs who are up for defensive Rookie of the Year. I mean, we've mentioned Vic Fangio already. A good defensive coordinator can elevate mediocre to average NFL players to put together a good represented defense. We're seeing what he can do when he has bona fide great players. I mean, Nolan Smith, Hassan Reddick screaming off the edge as pass rushers. I mean, Nakobe Dean goes down with an injury, and I believe it's I'm blanking on the player that stepped in. It was especially Burks, a special teams linebacker who's come in and made big plays. You want to talk about intangible players stepping up and filling in a new role. I mean, this is one where you can give me Nick Bolton and you can give me Trent McDuffie, and I do not doubt and deny for a second that they are really good defensive players. George Karlaftis has been fantastic for the Chiefs as well. I just feel like there's more playmakers on the Eagles side that are just so deep, so multiple at different levels. They're going to be keeping a good rotation going at defensive tackle as well. I mean, Jordan Davis, he's not known as any sort of special pass rusher, but he's the guy that's anchoring your run defense, which is going to be really important. That when the Kansas City Chiefs do make those run plays, you got to hold them to 1, 2, 3 yards. That's how you're going to try to force Mahomes into at least some uncomfortable situations to try to keep them behind the chain. So I'm going to go with the Eagles having the advantage on defense as well. Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean have been fantastic as rookies. And I mean, they've shown that they're not afraid of the big moments, and that they're very, very capable of going up against some talented wide receivers. And again, not shutting them down, because this is the NFL. Offense reigns supreme. It's about, can you make enough plays? Can you tip away a key third down conversion deflection? Can you come up with maybe an interception here or there? That's where the edge is going to be. And I'm just really, really bullish on the Eagles and their overall talent. Howie Roseman's done a great job of assembling a defense, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think this is going to really be interesting point because I think the Super Bowl 2 years ago, I know some of the personnel is different. It's not, like for
Hmm.
like necessarily, but 2 years ago, the Eagles had this amazing defensive line and the Chiefs offensive line completely stopped them. And that was the difference in that Super Bowl. They couldn't, get all the sacks they wanted. Of course, they complain about the field conditions. That's what you do when you lose. But that it's always the refs and the field conditions or something, Tom.
Hmm.
Now, winning teams don't do that. That's for sure. But I think the Chiefs found a way. And I know we'll get into coaching later, but again, like if this was like a week 6 matchup versus 2 weeks to prepare, it's just a whole different scenario. Just because all these great pass rushers, but the Chiefs like had an answer for him 2 years ago, and I feel like they'll have a way to have an answer for him again. I also look at this too, like, does it matter? Does it not? I don't know. You mentioned they're ready for the big games, but like, have the Eagles really been tested in the playoffs a little bit against the Rams? But they were winning most of the way in that game. You look at Jalen Carter, look at Chris Jones. Like, maybe Jalen Carter's a little more explosive, but Chris Jones been there, done that at D tackle, right? I look at
Hmm.
Trent McDuffie again. I think he's the most underrated player in the NFL. I think he's the best overall defensive player on either team. Obviously, I know we say the pass rushers
Hmm.
have a little bit more
Yeah.
impact, but in terms of like his actual dominance on the field, the only guy that stopped Jamar Chase this season, Jamar Chase was chucking his helmet going up against Trent McDuffie. who I believe is like the best rated corner in the NFL and shutting guys down. So both teams have a lot of playmakers. Eagles maybe have a little bit more depth. I would agree with that. But then again, you mentioned Quinion Mitchell. You mentioned, Cooper DeJean. Like, is there going to be a rookie factor? Like, what could they do? Because I think it's very interesting, Tom. You look at these two teams. The Eagles were first in scoring defense, second in scoring defense, 17.8. Chiefs were 19.2. So you take away that last game against the Broncos, these teams were virtually dead even in points per game. In terms of rush defense, Kansas City actually marginally better, but their rush defense stats were almost significant. Now, Kansas City has allowed more passing yards per game this season, but it's been more of like a bend, not break. Like, it seems like the Chiefs always stop you in the goal line. They stop those touchdowns. Their defense has a way of doing that. They had a couple defensive back injuries, guys that are healthy now. So it's tough. It's very tough. Again, on paper, I would say the Eagles marginally better because their secondary probably a little better, a little more depth at it. But I think McDuffie is the best corner overall in this matchup. And I think, again, it's almost same as the Bills week. Like, what does the Chiefs defense do best? Stop the run. What do the Eagles do best? Run the ball. What's the Eagles' number one strength on defense? Stop the run. What do the Chiefs do best? Pass the ball. I'm not saying the Eagles don't have a great secondary. They do, but they have a young secondary, a secondary that at times, in certain moments, has been vulnerable. We saw Jaden Daniels tear them to shreds in that comeback win, earlier this season. Actually, there was a lot of fumbles for Washington. For the most part, Jaden Daniels was able to move the ball, passing the ball pretty easily against that team. There is tape out there, the Eagles being vulnerable against the pass. So sometimes it's the matchup within the matchup. Against the average team in the NFL, I would argue that, yes, the Eagles defense would be marginally better. But I think what the Chiefs do best is what the Eagles don't do quite as good. What the Eagles do best is what the Chiefs stop best. The matchups within the matchups. Maybe the Eagles have more talent overall by a little bit, but maybe not within this matchup. Are the Eagles more equipped to beat so and so? Maybe. I don't think the Eagles match up all that great against the Chiefs personally. I think there's holes there that the Chiefs can expose. Two amazing defenses, two amazing defensive coordinators, the two best in the game. Again, on paper, I may lean slight edge Eagles, but in terms of the matchups within the matchups, I would lean slight edge Chiefs. To me, this is, again, pretty evenly matched defenses for me. And Philadelphia, by the way, had a really good defense 2 years ago as well. So I know it's Vic Fangio's a different coach, but you give the Chiefs 2 weeks to prepare, Tom. The stats of Andy Reid off a bye week, they are very, very different. So, we'll get into that in a little bit, where I think there's certain areas where the Chiefs have a pretty decided edge that we'll get to here in a little bit.
By the way, Eagles #1 in passing defense this season.
But they've had moments where they've been vulnerable. Again, they play the Dallas Cowboys, who had quarterback injuries. They play the Giants, who have no quarterbacks, twice. Sometimes it's the matchup within the matchup. You look at the Chiefs, they played Joe Burrow, they played Lamar Jackson, they played Josh Allen, they played Justin Herbert. A little bit difference in who they played. I'm just telling you, Jaden Daniels made the Eagles secondary not look so good, Tom. So, all right.
Not that great against the pass, just #1 in the NFL. Coaching, we've got, obviously, this is one that is a pretty easy one with Andy Reid over Nick Sirianni by a mile. Nick Sirianni, this is one where it's kind of odd because clearly he has some sense, he's some talent at getting the Eagles to this point, because the Eagles are in 2 Super Bowls in 3 years, and you don't do that with a net negative head coach. But it still kind of feels a little bit like, I'm not sure what it is he does here. And that could just be like, I'm not in Philadelphia, so I'm not plugged into the ins and outs of the organization.
Probably a little bit of that.
I'm just like, I'm a fan from a distance because I like the decal, and Donovan McNabb was my favorite quarterback as a child. But Andy Reid, it cannot go without. This is a Hall of Fame coach. He's been a Hall of Fame coach for a good long while. I'd say even before he got that first Super Bowl, I would have said he's a Hall of Fame level coach. And now the fact that he's won 3 of them, it's, he's elevated to certainly one of the best coaches of all time, certainly in that conversation of best coach of an era. If we want to, if we want to split hairs on that sort of thing. So that's how I break that down the head coaching matchup. When it comes to the different coordinators, I go Vic Fangio over Steve Spagnuolo by a sliver. And when I say a sliver, I mean a splinter coming out of a door jam type of thing where you're turning the corner, just like, oh, dang it, that's going to sting a little bit. Like that's how small of a margin there is between two fantastic coordinators. If you're ranking defensive coordinators in the NFL, one is one and one is one AAA. Like it's just they're that close to each other. And then I would say I'd probably go Kellen Moore over Matt Nagy by a decent stretch. And I will admit, I could very well just be jaded by my experience as a Bears fan with Matt Nagy as the head coach. But I don't think it is strictly coincidental that the Chiefs for several years have had a really, really high-powered offense, and that with Matt Nagy as the head coach, we've sometimes seen some clunkiness to what the offense is doing. Andy Reid's the play caller, so I don't know how much we can really put on Matt Nagy as far as, blame or anything along those lines. But Kellen Moore, I feel, has a bit of a proven track record as a part of multiple Dallas Cowboy 12-4 teams, and then eventually 12-5 teams. And then, of course, what they've done this season, he's kind of like, as a quarterback, known a little bit more for having a passing background, but designing a run game that accentuates a weapon like Saquon Barkley. I'd give the edge there. And then, of course, I am a Dave Toub stan as far as special teams go. I'm going to go with him over Michael Clay. Michael Clay's done a good job with this Eagles special teams. This is more that Dave Toub is at that Andy Reid level of you are so much better than all of your contemporaries that even when they're good, I don't think they're within that close of a margin. So I'm going to go Chiefs overall. I think there's some interesting, like you've been saying, matchups within the matchups, but I do go edge with Kansas City on the coaching side.
Yeah, I'll get in the coaching, then I'll probably hit special teams as well. I think you skipped over special teams, but no big deal.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, Whoops. You're good. No problem. No problem, Tom. I'm excited to talk about the coaches. Yeah, Vic Fangio, Spagnuolo, it's flip a coin. The two best defensive coaches in the game. Both of these guys are incredible at what they do. Spagnuolo likes to blitz. Like I said, Jalen Hurts will have to make some plays against the blitz. He'll really be tested early. Health, whether he's injured, whether he's healthy, we'll know early in that game. So both of these coaches, masterminds on defense. Offensive coordinator, I would agree. Kellen Moore seems to be better than Matt Nagy. But again, you mentioned Andy Reid is the play caller. So he's kind of in some ways the de facto OC. And again, Tom, I'll tell you, it's not that they're not trying. That's not the right word, because it's hard to explain, but it feels like whenever they need to dial up a play to win the game, they always come up with the exact play. Somebody's always wide open. So I almost argue offensive coaches to me is a virtual wash as well, just because I do know that Andy Reid's the play caller. I would agree Matt Nagy not as good as an OC as Kellen Moore, but in some ways, Andy Reid is the de facto OC. I would argue maybe even a slight edge to the Chiefs because of that, because in that Super Bowl a couple years ago, I know Vic Fangio wasn't there, but man, Andy Reid schemed up some wide open dudes. That Sky Moore touchdown, that Kadarius Toney touchdown. These are passes that, do I dare say, you or I could have completed. These dudes were wide open.
Yeah.
I love Mahomes to give him all the credit, but those were two of the easiest touchdowns he's ever thrown. Again, I don't know if you heard what the Bills said in post game against Kansas City. They said the Chiefs ran plays they've never seen the Chiefs run before. And again, I'm not saying they weren't trying in the regular season, but I feel like there's a few plays that Andy Reid, he looked at his team's record, He saw where they're headed. He's like, we're just going to save these for the playoffs. We don't want to release our full arsenal of,
Hmm.
plays for the regular season. There's going to be a couple plays he has up his back sleeve that nobody is scouted for, that nobody's prepared for. And you're going to see him in the Super Bowl time, because this is the time. Anything you saved, you're going to use
Hmm.
it in this big game. So special teams, I agree with you. Special teams coach for the Chiefs is terrific. Again, I think we're selling Nick Sirianni a little bit short, because there has been so
Probably.
much success. It's almost kind of like the Joe Mazzulla with the Celtics. They're winning despite of him, and then they win the championship, and you see like all these plaudits go to Joe Mazzulla. Maybe he was better than we thought he was. Obviously,
Hmm.
had a great roster. Not saying he didn't,
Of course,
but
yeah.
I do think Nick Sirianni. I think part of it with him is there's two things that I think go against him. He's a super young guy, and two, he's a little bit of a hothead. He's
He's a bit
got
of a
these moments
meatball.
where he's yelling at the players, he's yelling
Hmm.
at the fans even. Like he doesn't have that professionalism. Does not mean he does not get football though, because this guy clearly
Hmm.
gets football. He's a terrific coach, but Andy Reid, like you mentioned, we might be talking about the greatest coach of all time. I mean, he's definitely in that discussion.
Hmm.
If Andy Reid wants to coach long enough, depending on how much longer he wants to do this, he could possibly break every single regular season and postseason record. He's already like top 5, top 3 in all the stats. I mean, he could get the Super Bowls, he can get the wins, regular season, postseason. Again, this guy with 2 weeks to prepare is very, very dangerous. His record off a bye week, I actually didn't look it up, but you and I have talked about this on the show multiple times. He almost never loses off a bye week. Almost never. He is just automatic off a bye week. Give this guy 2 weeks to prepare. You're in big, big trouble. So definitely think the Chiefs get a pretty massive edge overall because of Andy Reid in the coaching section. And then the special teams, which is where the game could be decided, by the way. Jake Elliott missed 8 field goals this year. Traditionally a great kicker, though, so it's kind of like weird. Like, did he just have an off regular season? Because he's been off in the
Hmm.
postseason too. Missed 2 PATs against the Rams. It was a long field goal, but a field goal he missed against Washington in the NFC Championship game as well. Whereas Harrison Butker, you know, on the field, Tom, is as good as it gets. He is automatic. We've seen him make so many clutch kicks in the playoffs. He's got a great leg. I mean, he kicked the game-winning kick against the Eagles 2 years ago. So I do think the Chiefs get the edge there as well. Also, block kicks. The Chiefs
Hmm.
blocked the kick against the Broncos earlier this season. They blocked the kick against the Texans. They are Justin Reed, by the way. I think, yeah, coming off blocking kicks for the Chiefs. He is very, very dangerous. So return games, both teams are good at returning, about even stats, but the Chiefs in the postseason, they've had some good returns. Punt
Yeah.
return, kick return. I mean, their special teams is very, very good. Maybe you want to give a slight edge to the Eagles on offense and defense, but coaching, special teams for me are two areas where the Chiefs get a pretty massive edge in those two categories.
Absolutely, I'm right with you there on the special teams, and really the thing that I've liked about the Eagles special teams, and this is probably closer to the intangible side of things, is that they've been really good on their coverage units with forcing some turnovers.
Against the
Turnovers,
Packers.
that's not something that's really what I like to refer to, or what I've heard referred to as a
Sticky
sticky
stat. I
stat.
knew you were going to say
Um,
that. Sticky
but
Castleman.
but that's more the case, I think, for interceptions, because a lot of different variables go into interceptions, as I will be outlining certainly later on. Fumbles are a little bit more predictive or indicative for future success. And let's just get right into the intangibles, which I believe this is pretty much even
Mm.
across the board, because we have a couple instances of been there, done that. I mean, the Chiefs, of course, have won 2 Super Bowls in a row, 3 in the past 5 seasons. But the Eagles came up short in one of those Super Bowls, so they know. And when I say come up short, I mean it was coming down to pretty much the last drive. It was one holding penalty away from the Eagles having the opportunity of, okay, we're down by a score, we need to go down the field. Like, that's how close it was. for the first or for the first 58 minutes of that Super Bowl. So they know that they can go toe to toe with the Kansas City Chiefs, and now it's just a matter of how are we going to dig just a little bit deeper to get the job done? How are we going to be a little bit cleaner so that we're not, having our motions taken advantage of on those red zone goal line plays where you're mentioning Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore getting some wide open touchdowns, and then you look at how these teams have been playing, and on the defensive side of the ball, I thought it was fantastic coming out of the Eagles win that they have been looking at Charles Peanut Tillman highlights where they just put that on a loop. It's just like, this is our mentality, as we are just going to hunt for the ball every opportunity that we get. And we're not always going to get there. But turnovers are probably the second biggest indicator after quarterback success, or at least if you listen to Bears head coach Ben Johnson, that the turnover margin is going to be significant. So if the Eagles are able to force a fumble here or get a tipped ball interception there, and not just the Eagles, Kansas City Chiefs as well, I think that because both of these offenses are so methodical, sometimes explosive, but I'd say more methodical is a word that I would use for them, where they are just capable of just beating you down the field just one play after another. You're going to need those tide-turning plays where it's turning a touchdown into a field goal, turning a field goal into a punt in terms of getting
Nick
a
Bolton
sack or
scoop and score 2 years ago when they played.
That's the sort of thing. That's literally the margin of victory for the Kansas City Chiefs, based on how well the Eagles' offense was going. So that's why I think the intangibles are even. This isn't a case of the Eagles haven't been here before. This is a fresh opponent. This is one where, kind of similar to what we saw in the Bills-Chiefs game last week, that was one where it came down to some of those intangible, just margin plays, because both teams are so used to the stage. That's why I give it an even advantage. I don't think anybody has an edge here one way or another.
Yeah, I would still give the edge to the Chiefs personally, because they have, like you mentioned, this is what, their fourth Super Bowl in 6 years. They've won 3 of the last 5. They've been there and won that, done that. Eagles have been there and lost that. There's a lot of key players from both teams back, but I do think that the Eagles do have some guys. You look at their leader in that Super Bowl, Jason Kelsey's not there. Obviously, you look at a lot of Kansas City's leaders, Mahomes, Kelsey, Andy Reid are all still there. So I think Kansas City's got a little bit more of the key guys, back from that Super Bowl in terms of leadership. I think it cannot be underscored. Kansas City has won 17 straight one-possession games. That in its own is an intangible. It's a fluky, you would argue, stat, but I don't think so in their case, because they always button down at the end of the games. They always seem to make that play that the other team can't. I think that's a intangible edge for sure for Kansas City. I do agree with you. The Eagles were there 2 years ago. I don't think they're going to be scared of Kansas City necessarily. I think they know they can play with them. They beat them last year. Speaking of intangibles, though, Nick Sirianni was yelling at the Chief fans as well in that game, Tom. So it could be a little bit of anger of the Chief players towards Nick Sirianni. I also think the Chiefs are in some ways like, I don't think they're taking this stuff like, you guys win close, you guys are lucky, you guys get the refs, you guys get this. Like, that is some intangibles that the kind of like opposing fan bases are helping the Chiefs do that. Bettors are helping the Chiefs. 67% of bettors bet the Bills to win in the AFC Championship game. If you look at my podcast I do where we sell memorabilia, every neutral fan's picking the Eagles. I know the Chiefs are the minus 1.5 favorite, but very well there's going to be more picks on the Eagles. Very well what happened when we had the Bengals Burrowhead thing. Since that Burrowhead comment, by the way, Tom, the Kansas City Chiefs have not lost to the Cincinnati Bengals. I believe it's 4 straight wins, 3 or 4 straight between the regular season and postseason combined. So for those that thought the Chiefs are scared of the Bengals, yeah, not so much. So, I mean, I know it seems crazy, Tom, but this is what Michael Jordan used to do. Michael Jordan, whenever there was perceived trash talk, even one small comment, whether it was by a player, a journalist, the whole thing, oh, Clyde Drexler's a better shooter than Jordan.
Hmm.
He makes 6 threes, in the first half of the NBA Finals. He may not be as vocal about it, but Patrick Mahomes, Kelsey's the one that does the talking afterwards, but Patrick Mahomes is the same way as
Mm,
Michael Jordan.
now
The
Kelsey does
all-time
the talking
greats,
in the game too.
he does in the game as well.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, he feeds off of that. He might tell you he's not listening to social media, but he is. He's listening. He's like, oh, you don't want to make me a Pro Bowl quarterback this year? I'm listening, guys. All this talk about is Lamar, Josh Allen getting there, Jalen Hurts getting there. They're just a little bit like, it feels so crazy to say this, Tom. It feels so crazy to say this. But
Hmm.
this is a Kansas City Chief team playing with the chip on its shoulder. A team that's going for a three-peat. A team that is quite honestly disrespected by general fans out there. I mean, we're looking to see something that's never happened in the history of the National Football League. A team has never won 3 straight Super Bowls. Yeah, it's ugly sometimes, but that almost helps them. Winning ugly, that's how you got to win in the
Hmm.
Super Bowl. It's not always going to be, smooth sailing, Tom. So I think there's like, I just find it crazy, just crazy that the Chiefs like are really playing with a chip on their shoulder. And if you talk to the average fan, they're the underdog, Tom. I don't care what the betting line says because, Vegas knows certain things. I'm sure Vegas knows the Chiefs will win. But in terms of, like, if you talk to the general public and how much of this is just general hatred towards the Chiefs for always having won. I mean, there's a
Hmm.
great line. Have you seen the movie Air with Matt Damon? It's the
No.
Michael Jordan movie. Matt Damon, who plays the Nike guy, the Nike shoe guy that got
Hmm.
MJ to the contract. It's a very fitting line. You have to watch the movie, by the way. I really think you'll enjoy it. It's like a must-watch movie for any sports fan or anyone in business or marketing in general. So put that on your to-watch list, Tom. Spectacular movie. But in the movie, Matt Damon has a line where he's like, "They will build you up, then they'll try to tear you down." It's the whole
Hmm.
Batman You live long enough to become the villain. That's what's happened to the Kansas City Chiefs, and they love it. They love it. They're like, okay, you said, what about us? What you say
Hmm.
about us? We got you guys. We're listening. They are 100% listening, Tom. And that's what Mahomes and Kelsey feed off of. So I do think the Chiefs have the intangible edge, just with the experience of having done this and with everybody not wanting them to win. I think that helps them. I
Hmm.
think, and that's why I always tell our customers, the customers on my show are always picking against the Chiefs. I'm like, please, please keep it coming. I've been hearing this in the playoffs for 2 years running, how the Chiefs will lose. I've yet to see it. So until I see it, Tom, that's definitely an intangible edge for me, the Kansas City Chiefs. Also, one more intangible edge, one more extra little bit of juice, Tom.
Uh-huh.
Travis Kelsey, bowl game, University of Cincinnati, playing the bowl game in New Orleans. Young Travis Kelsey, way irresponsible back in the day. It was like drugs, alcohol, whatever it was. He got kicked off the team for not passing the drug test during the bowl week. So did not get to play in the bowl game. Full circle, back in New Orleans, Travis Kelsey, he's going to be like, I don't want the same thing as last time.
Hmm.
I want a new feeling. He'll be extra motivated as well. So I like the Chiefs on the intangible side for sure time. And Andy Reid off a bye week too. 2 weeks
Hmm.
for him, extra intangibles. I do think Casey has a pretty big edge in this area personally. Call me a Chiefs
Absolutely.
homer. Just do it. That's fine.
Well,
But they
yeah,
got the edge for me.
that's absolutely fine. Because I mean, we're going to be going opposite on this
Of
one,
course we are.
as is entertaining. So time to get down to who wins, who's the MVP, what the score is, and I mean, if I'm going to give the edge to the Eagles for offense and defense, sure, there's the edge to the Chiefs for special teams and coaching, and that's not to be underestimated. But I just think that the Eagles have the more overall talent on the team. I thought so all season long. I thought that them getting Saquon Barkley at the beginning of the season was going to be the player that helped elevate them from a good offense to a special offense. And you could even say that the Eagles' offense, over the past couple of years had been really, really good. But I think that he just is a force multiplier on there, because I think that if we're going to be talking about intangibles or something along those lines, he's had multiple long, explosive runs in this playoff postseason
And regular
so
season.
and regular season, but specifically in the postseason, where the lights are brighter, the stage is bigger, and he's gone out there and just been like, yeah, I think I can take this one from R30 all the way to the house. I think I can make a house call, on this drive, or maybe even a couple of times in a game. And of course, the Chiefs are going to be really, really good at limiting that. But in a game where you just need one play, where there's just one touchdown that's going to make the difference, I trust Saquon Barkley to be able to get that play. I've got the Eagles to win the Super Bowl. I'm going to go with a score of 26-24. I've got Saquon Barkley as the MVP of this Super Bowl. I think that he is going to be, leaned on very, very heavily. I mean, that was the benefit of the Eagles having such a wide margin of victory against the Commanders, is that they didn't have to give him 20, 25 touches. I think he's going to be seeing that level of workload. And I think that a lot of those runs are only going to go for 2, 3, 4 yards. But I think that it's going to be the one that goes for 40, 50, 60 yards. That's going to be the difference for the Eagles in this game. And that's what, if you want to sprinkle some prop money around, what have you, put longest touchdown on Saquon Barkley or something along those lines, or an anytime score on Saquon Barkley. I think he's going to be the MVP of this Super Bowl.
Where'd you land on 26? Is there a missed PAT, a go for two, miss the
We'll be
two?
talking about that a little bit later on in the
Okay,
program,
all
I'm
right. Okay,
sure.
I was gonna say 26 is a very, very random score. I'm gonna have some fun with this one, Tom. I'm gonna go 27-24.
That works.
Chiefs. So almost same score as
No.
you, but gonna go with Kansas City winning. I'll say this about Saquon: the guy's an absolute beast. Uh, the Chiefs have not given up a long touchdown run all season. It has not happened. No one's done it all season. I'm not sure if it happens in this game. And by the way, I'm not saying they're going to stop it every time, but the tush push, they stopped Josh Allen a couple times, and Josh Allen was extremely effective. So maybe there's 1 yard to go. Do they stop the Eagles on one of those plays that maybe wins them the game? It is very, very
Hmm.
possible. Close line judgments aside, there was multiple times they actually stopped them. I think it was on the 2-point conversion as well. That one was very obvious to clear stuff. So maybe that tush push, brotherly shove, maybe not as effective against Kansas City. My MVP is going to be Mahomes. I think he's going to play great like he always does in these big games. The guy's playoff numbers are through the roof. Got something like 50 touchdowns and 8 picks, give or take on that number. He is just automatic in the playoffs, automatic in the Super Bowl. I think he's going to have a really, really big game. I think a big one to look for. I'm telling you, Xavier Worthy or Hollywood Brown or both will get some big plays down the field. The Chiefs' offense, again, I've said it all year, a lot better than given credit for, even with injuries, because they had the long drives. You have long drives, Tom, you will naturally score less points. But their
Hmm.
drives were efficient. Efficient drives. They settled for field goals a little bit too much in the regular season. In the playoffs, field goals have become touchdowns all of a sudden. So I think that Chiefs offense is, again, a lot better than given credit for this season. I think this game we'll see some of those deep balls. We'll see some of those creative plays. We saw it last year in the Super Bowl. McCole Hardman had the deep ball for Mahomes. There's going to be a 50, 60 plus yard play for the Chiefs wide receivers in this game to be made. I think Harrison Butker, again, maybe Jake Elliott misses a field goal. Harrison Butker kicks a walk-off winner as time expires, perhaps, Tom. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So that could be definitely a fun thing to see. But yeah, Mahomes is like plus 105, plus 110. the heavy
Mhm.
favorite for the Super Bowl MVP. But
Yeah.
if you're thinking the Chiefs will win, we know this is typically a quarterback award. Obviously, Saquon would be a guy that would obviously be a contender to get it. But I mean, even a couple years ago, there was a real case for Nick Bolton on defense to get it. Most tackles, scoop and score. They
Mhm.
still gave it to Mahomes. I feel like if the Chiefs
Yeah.
win, Mahomes will get the MVP. So I think the Chiefs will win. He'll get the MVP. If it's even close, like if there's even a debate, they're going to go to the quarterback, especially Mahomes, megastar, build him up. It's what the NFL is all about. So, by the way, in terms of Saquon, again, the Chiefs are not going to stop him, but they can contain him. I think
Mhm.
Saquon's a little bit quicker, a little bit more explosive, a little bit better, but for the most part, pretty similar running back to Christian McCaffrey, who the Chiefs saw last year. The Niners offensive line with a healthy Trent Williams, pretty similar to the Eagles offensive line. Christian McCaffrey, for his high standards, the Chiefs shut him down last year in the Super Bowl. They shut down Derrick Henry this season. I know week one, but they shut
Mhm.
him down this season. So in some ways, again, he'll probably get 100 yards anyway because he's that good. But in some ways, Saquon for me, Tom's going to be in for a rude awakening. Those big holes he's been getting, they will be considerably smaller against Karlaftis, against the big man Chris Jones, against Nick Bolton. I think those holes will be a lot smaller. By the way, Chiefs
Mhm.
secondary too, really good at tackling. Their secondary is really good at tackling. If your corners can tackle, that's where those long runs, those 10-yard runs, stay 10-yard runs, not 50, 60-yard runs.
Mhm.
So I am going to lean that Saquon will not break a big one in this game personally, Tom. He might get a 20 or 30 yarder, maybe, but I don't think there's going to be a 50, 60-yard house call against the Chiefs personally. So give me the Chiefs in a close one, 27-24. Jake Elliott misses a kick. Harrison Butker does not miss a kick. That ends up being the difference in the football game.
Absolutely. And yeah, speaking of those, long run, short runs, that gets into prop bet territory, which, of course, there's a lot of fun stuff within the game, but there's a lot of fun stuff outside of the game as well. And I'm sure it will do our annual Super Bowl prop sheet between you,
Yeah,
myself, and the well regarded famous Drew bracket on those as well. There's a lot of ones that are really really common. I mean, the coin toss is one that you should
I
never
love it.
ever bet. Never bet it on a site. That is simply that is something that you do as a house wager or something along those lines. You
Me and Drew
wager,
have bet it
who's
every year for the last
who
15 years, Tom.
who's picking up the tab on the order of wings, that sort of thing. Because if you're going to a sports book, there's no there's no edge on heads versus tails. It's a literal coin flip.
You're
It's
telling me
50-50.
don't
You're
put
paying
500
attention.
on tails?
Don't put 5 cents on tails, Common. That is what I am
Okay.
telling you.
All right.
The national anthem. That's one where you're gonna want to get those wagers in early, because once they have rehearsal leading up to the Super Bowl, that's when they shut down all the wagering, because that's when there's enough people who have that information and can let it slip out here or there. Hey, I think we're going a little high, a little low, what have you. So, Common, what are some of your favorite non-game prop bets for the Super Bowl this year?
Yeah, so my favorite is always the coin toss. I get so
Hmm.
into it. Like, I think I'm almost as excited for the coin toss as the game itself. I'm on the edge of my seat ready for it. Drew Brackett, who, for the people that watch the show, might know, we used to have Drew was, it's our
Hmm.
college show reunited years later. Drew was on the program a couple years ago, but with the work schedule, is not able to be on the show anymore. But Drew and I, good buddies, we have bet the coin toss against each other for about 15 years running, and he has won the vast majority of them. I have not had a lot of luck, but I have a new strategy, and I'm going with it, Tom. It is tails never fails. So I'm going to I know tails, I believe, has been the popular one in recent years. So I am going to go tails, all in on tails.
Hmm.
I might make a small wager online. We'll see.
No, you're just
We'll
paying
see,
juice for no
Tom.
reason.
Come on. Come on. There was a stat, too, that I think the Chiefs defied. Something like where it
Yes,
was, what was,
if you
you had the
won
stat.
Yeah, it was like since the Broncos Seahawks Super Bowl where the Seahawks just absolutely woodshedded the Denver Broncos. That since that Super Bowl, the team that won the coin toss lost the game. And it was that case for like a decade plus until the
But I
Chiefs
think the
defied that
Chiefs
last year.
won the coin toss last year and won the
Yeah,
game.
yeah, they were the ones that broke that streak, which I mean, it's apropos of nothing. I just find it interesting. If anything, I find that kind of statistic interesting from the standpoint that the conventional wisdom is that the better strategic move is when you win the toss, you defer to the second half. So that way you can do that little double dip. You take advantage of the last four and the first four
Sure.
of the middle of the game. And the fact that that just wasn't, as much as it's a strategic advantage over 17 games in a regular season, not necessarily the case in an individual Super Bowl. But yeah, the coin toss is definitely a good one. One that, let's see, I'm not sure if this will be our actual sheet, but I'm looking at one just to see what we have. Some of the ones
The
on here are pretty
Gatorade
fun,
color
but
odds.
that's
And I
one.
believe the Chiefs have used different colors.
Hmm.
So has worn purple Gatorade in each of the past two Super Bowls, but orange was the color the first time he took a Gatorade
Hmm.
bath. So two
Okay.
purples and an orange for the Chiefs in their last three Super Bowl
Hmm.
wins. So do you think it's going to be orange or purple if the Chiefs win? I mean, Eagles seems like it would be green, but I don't know. It could not be.
I don't think they drink. If I had to guess, it would probably be
Oh, they
maybe like
sub.
a
So
clear
the odds, by the
Gatorade.
way, color of Gatorade
Hmm.
on DraftKings right now
Hmm.
plus 175 for purple, plus 250 for orange. Yellow, green is the same category, plus 350.
Okay.
Red plus 425. Blue plus 450. And clear plus 850. No
Mm.
Gatorade bath at plus 1500, which that one is not going to happen.
No, that one's definitely not going to happen. No, one that I would be interested in, and I don't see it on a sheet here. Maybe Common, you'll be like scratching this one in. Is the over under on some Taylor Swift props? You know, I know a lot of people like to gripe about Taylor Swift and the attention that she gets
They
as
don't show her
one
much
of
anymore. She
well,
was
and
only shown like once or twice the last game, so take the under. I
that's the
advise you if you
well,
find that somewhere, take the under.
I would well, that's the thing where I know I'm kind of sort of cheating by tying this into a game element, but it's one of the things where if you think Travis Kelsey is going to be having a good game,
That might take the over.
maybe you want to have one thing correlate and tail with the other, and you go with Taylor Swift over props and also Travis Kelsey over props and try to pair those up, or vice versa. If you
Kelsey
happen to
was
think
good
that
against the
Travis
Eagles
Kelsey
last
is
time.
washed, maybe if you think he's washed, then you go on the under on that sort of thing. I know that there was one where it was who's going to be shown first? Is it going to be Taylor Swift, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelsey, or a bald eagle? Who's going to be shown first during the national anthem?
The Eagle.
You think the bald eagle?
It's America.
I think it's going to be Patrick Mahomes because
Okay.
America. Uh,
All right.
I
I
think that
love
he
the
would
national
probably be
anthem, by
the.
the way, Tom. How long it is it?
Mhm.
I always bet the over. So that should
Yeah,
be
we're
good.
at over 2 minutes and 2.5 minutes is where we're at. It's 120 point. Well, no, it's not 2.5 minutes. It's 2 minutes and 1 second is where that is. If it's over versus under, so I think that's a pretty fun one as well. And then I do like some of the ones that are game related but very very proppy from the standpoint of is the first offensive play going to be a run or a pass. I like a lot of the prop bets early in the game because as the game goes on you're investing in it, you're not really paying attention to some of the more game wide ones like, oh, is a certain player going to have over under rushing yards or receiving yards. I like the boom 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 of, all right,
Yeah, I
national
agree.
anthem, over
I'm the
under,
same way.
coin flip, over under, first play of the game, run or pass. So I think
First team
that's
to
a
score
really
is when they do. First team, touchdown or
mhm.
field goal.
The jersey
Yeah.
number of the first touchdown score. Is it going to be odd? Is it going to be even? You know, if you think maybe, Mahomes or Kelsey, you go odd. If you think maybe
Worthy,
Saquon
Hollywood
Barkley,
Brown. A lot of odd numbers. Kareem Hunt for the Chiefs. I know
AJ
Pacheco's even.
Brown, Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Saquon
this
Eagles
there
26
there
to 1.
might be an edge on picking an odd number for the first score of the game.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's a lot of fun props, and if you have a sheet to go along with your game, that's a really really fun way to consume the Super Bowl, along with consuming some really really good food. I mean, this is a fun aspect of the Super Bowl as well. There's a lot of different ways one can go. I'm going a little bit different. I know that I had a lot of success with a Thanksgiving dinner last year.
Doing
I
it again?
cannot recommend it highly enough. I did not get the turkey in time. The turkeys are out of the grocery store by the time I went to go buy one. But never fear, I'm going to go with a
Pot
classic.
roast.
Although, well, no, I'm going to go with the classic Super Bowl food. I'm going to go with a homemade pizza this year, Common. Make
Ooh.
the dough a couple of days before, let it age, let it rise a little bit, and then get that pizza stone in the oven, get it nice and hot. My recommendation that I've found, because I don't do this a ton, I don't have a super amount of practice, but don't make your pie and then let it sit out and then wait to shuttle it in and out of the oven. You're probably best out rolling out the dough, putting it on that hot stone, doing a quick, a dab of sauce, put on your cheese, your toppings, whatever you want it to be, then pop it into the oven. I found that if I try to make a bunch of pizzas and then like line them, shuttle them in and out of the oven, I kind of find they get a little bit room temperature, a little bit sticky, difficult to manage. Then you get a tear in that pizza crust. The sauce gets onto the pizza stone, and now you got to do a whole thing of tending to that. So there's some different methods here. Have not yet decided on the protein that I'm going to do. If I'm going to do maybe some dry seasoned wings, maybe
I,
some fried calamari,
I was about to
maybe
say,
something along
Tom,
those
what's
lines.
on the Tom Castleman pizza? What do you put on your pizza?
So I'm relatively simple with things. I used to be a fan of cured meats, but as I've gotten older, the digestive system not quite as efficient as it used to be.
You're
I'm a
telling
pretty
me.
simple, just cheese pizza with mushrooms on top type of thing. Like it doesn't take much
Interesting.
for me to have a good time with a pizza that's on the simpler side of things.
I like green peppers and pepperoni.
There you go.
That's my jam.
That's a good mix
Yeah.
right there.
One
So
one of my
what are you
life
looking for?
goals. Oh, go ahead.
Hmm.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, what's your go-to for the Super Bowl? But you can go life goal if you want to.
Yeah, life goal for me is to go to a Tom Castleman Super Bowl party. With the food. I told you, I'm more than happy to supply, even front the bill for the ingredients. But I want like a Tom Castleman feast
Do a
catered to me
full
for the Super
Thanksgiving dinner
Bowl.
next year. Yeah, that's one where
Yes,
I think in doing the scouting on that one, that's definitely you got to buy the turkey at Christmas time, after Christmas, before New Year's, where they still have some. They're discounting the absolute bejesus out of it because they just need to get these 20 pounders out of the store. That's where you buy it, stuff it in your
so you
freezer.
waited too long, is what you're telling me.
That's exactly what I did. Yeah, I made the mistake on that front.
SMH. All right.
Yeah.
Well, so for me, Tom, uh,
Hmm.
I have a fun tradition here. So my now fiancés, I could say
There
fiance,
you
got
go.
engaged last week. Thank you, sir. Exciting stuff in my personal life, but her mom's like best friend hosts a Super Bowl party every year. So, I went to it the last 2 years, and since
Hmm.
I've started going, Chiefs have won every Super Bowl. So I do not plan to not go to this party until the Chiefs lose the Super Bowl. Then I'm gonna rethink things because I told them I was like, if the Chiefs lose to the Bills, I might not show up. I might be too angry to see other people and too angry my team's not there. I don't know. Because they asked me, "Are you going to show up?" I was like, "I think so. I'm a maybe. I think so. Let's see how the AFC title game goes first." Luckily the Chiefs won. I thought people had Super Bowl parties until I went to this one. Like,
Hmm.
oh my God. Uh, I'm blanking on the guy's name, but I think it's the husband. I think Kim is the friend, but the husband, he just makes such a incredible spread. He makes tacos, wings,
Mm.
soups, like there's all sorts of chips and dip. There's like a bunch of dessert spreads, but I mean, just like it's like an all you can eat buffet for the Super
Mm.
Bowl. And it is just like to die for. I absolutely love it. So I'm actually really excited for the Super Bowl party, Tom. Like, I'm gonna stress eat and it's bad, but it's gonna happen because it's gonna be a very close game. Which by
Oh
the way,
yeah.
real quick, food aside, something we did
Mhm.
not mention. We did mention the game, but that Super Bowl 2 years ago, in terms of whistle to whistle, one of the best Super Bowls ever. We have so many Super Bowls where, the Falcons, Patriots, the great comeback, even the Chiefs,
Mhm.
Niners last year, overtime in the Super Bowl game. But that was in terms of for a whole game, edge of your seat stuff the entire game. But as far as food, I'm going to be boring. My favorite actually is also pizza, just because it is like, yeah, you can still, me, pizza sauce. I can make anything messy. I'm not the cleanest guy, you know that, Tom. But I find wings, I love wings, but wings, especially if you're wearing a jersey, and I have my
Hmm.
good luck Mahomes jersey,
Hmm.
wings can get very, very messy.
Yes.
When I want to watch the game, I'm not saying I'm not going to eat the wings, I'll eat everything. Chips and dip can get very messy, you know. But pizza, like, you still got to be careful. You can still get the sauce
Still can
on you,
handle.
but
Hmm.
it's a little bit easier to handle. And you just grab it, you eat it. You like don't have to worry about your surroundings. Because once you start bringing the forks and spoons out for some of these foods, like I'm focusing on the game, right? And the commercials. Like the Super Bowl is like you don't get up. Like at the end of the Super Bowl time, I have to pee so bad. I have to pee, I have to poop, I have to do everything. I've held it in for 3, 4 hours. So that's when I take care of business. You're not getting up during the Super Bowl. So,
Hmm.
forks and spoons, you got to look down, got to make sure. Basically, if I need a fork or spoon, you're going to already be towards my B or C level foods, no matter how good you are. A low key one that I like traditionally, besides pizza, I love the mini hot dogs. Those are so
Mm.
good. I think it was at a party I went with my friend Sam from high school. His sister, at one Super Bowl party I went at his place, had the mini hot dogs. And I was like, yes, please. Mini hot dogs. Let's go.
Just on their own or wrapped in something like
No, pigs in a blanket. Yeah, the pigs in a blanket
do you prefer
wrapped.
bagel or croissant roll for that one?
I think it was croissant roll.
Croissant roll? I
Yeah.
mean, you can't really go wrong with them, but I know some people have a
Yeah.
preference of do you want the mini bagel dog or do you want it with wrapped in like
I
the
think the croissant wins, but
yeah.
either one is really, really good. So yeah, it's gonna be a feast. It's gonna be fun. Looking forward to it. We have also a scorecard tradition that we now do. So me, I'm very predictable with what I'm going to talk about during the Super Bowl, and so is my fiance's mom. She also has a lot of her like random stuff she brings up.
Hmm.
So Allie and Renee, her mom, make a card of things that I'm going to say, then they check off whether I said it or not. And then we have a separate
A
card for
common
Renee,
prompt
things
sheet.
yeah, things that she said or didn't say. So, and this year, a lot of the talk is going to be about the ring because she'll show off
Hmm.
her ring or whatever engagement ring. But, which is again, I'm very happy for it. I'm all for it. But I'm going to be very focused on the game. So I'm like, this is not the time for this. Let's do it after the game because you know me, Tom.
Hmm.
I actually I get nervous during these games. Like I believe the
Hmm.
Chiefs will win. They always pull a way out, but I'm the guy that starts pacing. I'm the guy that starts stress eating. I'm the guy that's actually low key during a big game, very quiet. I'm not like
Hmm.
very loud. I like shut down and I just like sit there and I'm like, oh my god, oh my god. I'll get loud during a big play, but like I might just go mute. Believe it or not, me going no
Hmm.
talk for a span of like 15 minutes because I'm so like zoned in on every single moment that I just like I can't even get words out of my mouth in those moments. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's it's the best day of the year for
Hmm.
sports fans like us. This is like our Christmas. It's going to be an epic, epic Super Bowl. Food wise, game
Hmm.
wise. Looking forward to commercials as well. We didn't have our favorite commercial written in, but I'll give you a couple just real quick off the
Oh
top of
yeah.
my head. Uh, What's up? What's up? We had the Yo Yow commercial way back.
Hmm.
Uh, if you remember that one, I know last year I loved Arnold Schwarzenegger
And
commercial.
Danny DeVito, that was a very good
Danny
one.
DeVito was good. So I soak it all in. The
Hmm.
pregame show, the national
Ugh.
anthem, the game, the commercials, the halftime show. I think it's Kendrick Lamar this year.
Yes, it
The
is.
postgame show. I kind of like I soak it all in. It's like such a like a and you know me, I'm gonna try to watch the Puppy Bowl, the Kitten Bowl
Hmm.
before everything Super Bowl related. Like that Sunday, February 9th, it's like Christmas. It's like the best day of the year, Tom. Definitely the best day of the year. So I am super pumped for it.
Now, the one place where I will differ with you on that one is I know I'm going to turn on the television at 5:30, and we're still going to have a half hour till kickoff. I know that it's slated for a specific time, and it's always going to go late. It always drives me up a wall. It's like, no, I've gotten myself situated. I have my
Sure.
food. I have my drink. And it's like when you go to, put on a movie or something as you eat your dinner, and by the time the opening credits are done, you've eaten all of your food. And you're like, well, what am I even doing here
Right.
anymore? It's that sort of stuff drives me up a
Well,
wall. Just like this, almost like this overwrought navel gazing of the NFL as we're leading up to the biggest game. I just want the game itself. That's why I cheer for the under on every single national anthem. One, because I think it's
let's fast forward.
superfluous. But yeah, it's like, let's just get to the. I don't need the F whatever flying over the head, or I don't need this many jets or this many stealth bombers. Just can we just kick the ball in the air and get on to what we're actually here to see? Which, I mean, now we'll still have a shot of the things overhead, even though it's in the Superdome in New Orleans. They're still going to have all that stuff, but
Sure.
anyway, we should move on to our locks of
Betting
the week,
locks.
where we have had a very, very good season
Yeah.
overall as a show. Definitely as a show for the NFL portion of things, finishing with a winning record. And I'm having every bit of confidence that individually we will each have a winning record as well.
Oh, I don't know.
Coming
I feel like
into,
we'll be going opposite each other. I don't think
well, I
both
mean,
like
but I mean, like
overall
on
for
the
the
season,
season, yes,
yes,
but not for
yeah.
this week necessarily.
For this week, there's going to be, I think probably there's only going to be one where you and I are going to be completely diametrically opposed, because I've got a couple of props that I think are really, really fun. But first, let's hit the recap for last week. I had a 2 out of 3 is not bad, as
Yeah.
Meatloaf likes to say. You and I both hit on the Chiefs -1.5 against the Buffalo Bills. It was a 3-point margin of victory for them. Where I got this one wrong is I thought it was going to be a low scoring affair, and both offenses were clicking actually
Amen.
at a
Amen.
pretty good rate. So that the over under was 47.5. The total was, oh, I got to do mental math of 61 points.
I think it's
32 to
61
29.
points.
Yeah, 61
Yes.
points. So there was that. And then, I mean, I picked the Eagles and the Commanders over 47 to hit. I didn't expect that to happen in the first half of the game.
That was
It felt
wild.
like that was an incredible performance of offense and, defense as well. Defense turning short fields over. So that was a pretty easy no sweat for me on that one. And then, yeah, I mean, the Eagles just completely outplayed the Commanders, just fumbles left and right as the Commanders were not able to stick within that 6-point margin. And then
Yep. I missed
Travis
that one.
Kelsey, he was the one
Did not show up.
did not show up, but I mean, didn't need to. That's one of those things where I'm sure as a player, he really wants to have the ball. He's a competitive as all get out guy, but I'm sure he's perfectly fine with, yeah, Patty, go ahead, taking 2 touchdown runs. I'm imagining he calls Patrick Mahomes Patty. I don't know why.
Patty cakes.
I don't think that would actually fly, frankly. And then, of course, Xavier Worthy scoring as well. So, Travis Kelce's the type of guy that he wants to win more than anything else. So he has no problem catching a ball, going downfield. Does he have a shot at a touchdown? Maybe, but he knows if he pitches it to a teammate, that guy's going to score, and that's that much better. Also, he
Yeah.
likes to have fun with that sort of thing. So,
Yeah. I got us at 15, 13, and 2 for me on the season.
correct?
You're at 19 and 11, Tom. So
Not
definitely
bad.
a winning record. We'll reassess. I know we'll do some shows, post football season with March Madness, NBA
Hmm.
playoffs, but obviously it's going to be less shows. We still might do locks, but as far as the football section of things, definitely a
Hmm.
winning season. I'm planning on a winning week this week. I'm
What you
planning on a
got?
3-0 week this week, Tom.
Of course.
That's I always believe to
I'm already
achieve, so
putting
I'll
in the
go
first one.
Chiefs -1.5.
Yep.
Same as last week. Chiefs win by 2 or more. Again, I actually might, on my own terms, bet the
Hmm.
money line just because I don't want them to win by 1 and I lose. That's probably what I'm going to end up doing, but I'll do full 1.5 for the show this week. That's fine. I'll take that extra half point.
Hmm.
Like I said, Kansas City, to me, they have the best player in the game, Patrick Mahomes. They have the best coach in the game, Andy Reid. Give them 2 weeks to prepare. These guys will be ready. I think the Chiefs win the game overall, so going to go Chiefs -1.5. Kind of going off of that, if they win the game, the likely MVP, the quarterback, Patrick Mahomes. Actually, the Chiefs have won 3 Super Bowls with Mahomes as the quarterback, and really 2 of them, it was even a question mark was the MVP. Like there was one that was pretty clearly came out. I would say the game last year was definitely Mahomes MVP, but the first Super
Mhm.
Bowl, Damian Williams played great. The
Yep.
Eagles Super Bowl, Nick Bolton, which only gives credence to like if it's close, they're going to the quarterback. So I do think Mahomes wins the MVP plus 105, plus 110, depending on the book. And I'm just going to go all in on Patrick Mahomes. Might as well, right?
Mhm.
He's the
Sure.
guy. He's my guy. I'm going to go 250 plus pass yards. It's at minus 120. Last I saw on DraftKings, that line is moving a little bit. So essentially over 249 and a half passing yards, 250 plus for Mahomes. I think he gets that number in this game. Very Chief heavy. I'm
Mhm.
guessing your props and your bets will be very Eagle heavy. That's why I'm not sure we have a winning week as a team overall.
There's only one where you and I are definitely opposed because I, of course, have the Eagles plus 1.5. If I'm picking them to win, I may as well pick them to
Sure.
cover that spread. So not a lot to get into there. The other two, though, I think that I don't really. It doesn't really matter too much on this one. On I couldn't find this one on Bovada. That's typically where I go, but I was able to find on BetMGM. Is there going to be a 2 point conversion attempt common? I say yes, and that's at plus
Yeah.
110. You want to know how we get to that 26-24 score? A missed kick here or there, a 2 point conversion here or there. That's how I'm going on this one. I picked this one last year as well, and I don't actually think that it hit. But this is one where the NFL is continuing to evolve, continuing to change, and I don't think there's necessarily going to be the sort of environment where there is a 13-point margin at any point in the Super Bowl, but it's becoming more and more conventional wisdom that if you're down 13 and you score a touchdown, you go for 2. And why do you do that? It's because you get the 2 points, it's a 5 point margin. That way, if the other team kicks a field goal, you're still within a single possession or a single touchdown game. So I think that math nerds, strategy nerds, what have you. It's becoming more and more prevalent, so that's why I think that's a pretty decent number. And then this is going to be a tight game, and both these teams are going to want to be aggressive. There's going to be at least one fourth and short type of situation, or as we get to the end of a half or the end of the game, somebody's going to need to convert on a fourth down to keep a drive going. That's why I'm taking over 2.5 fourth down conversion attempts at plus 115. That is on Bovada. I think that it's just going to be something where 4th and 1, 4th and inches, 4th and 2. We're going to see some tushes being pushed. We're going to see some shoving in a brotherly fashion, I think, to say nothing of any of the trick plays that can come off of that. Uh, Patrick Mahomes did an excellent job. I thought the Chiefs did an excellent job of taking a quarterback like Mahomes, who is good at scrambling, not necessarily used in design running, and then actually designing some runs for him,
He
which
runs
was
way more in the
incredible.
playoffs, Tom, every
Yeah,
year.
I mean,
Like I
anything to
said,
get that yard. Yeah.
I know I'm not saying they're not trying in the regular season, but like in the regular season, you're winning so many games you could win anyway. They
Hmm.
probably don't want to injure Mahomes in the regular season, so they don't run him as much. His amount of running in the playoff games, again, he's not like necessarily fast. He's pretty like
Hmm.
above average speed, but nothing fast necessarily. But he's very crafty in
Hmm.
how he runs. And I will talk about Luka Doncic in a little bit. Like
Hmm.
Luka Doncic, not super fast, but very crafty, getting by guys, finishing at the rim. Mahomes is a very crafty runner when he needs to be one of the
Hmm.
best running quarterbacks in the league, Patrick Mahomes. So I kind
Yeah.
of
So
like
we've
the
got
2 point conversion and fourth down, Tom. I
yes,
might
it's
actually try
situational
to
football.
find those as well. So actually, maybe
Hmm.
we could both go 2-1,
Yeah,
or
we could. We're gonna have at the very best a 5-1 week.
yes, best
I think
case
that's
scenario.
definitely with me going 3-0. Let's move on to trivia. My trivia is going to dovetail into my statement of the week comment, so I'll let you get the ball rolling on trivia if you've got something for us today.
You go ahead.
Hmm.
I think I didn't write my trivia question down, but I'll
Oh,
get
you're
one
good.
for you. You go ahead first.
All right. So
We'll pause in between for a break.
my trivia is going to tie in with my statement of the week, and it's one that I've held this opinion as a homer, and I'm fully going to put that disclaimer up. But I do think that Charles Peanut Tillman should be in the NFL Hall of Fame. I mean, there's a couple different criteria that you can use. You can have somebody who's had a short burst of high productivity. Look at a Terrell Davis, for example, where he doesn't really have a ton of longevity, but when he was good, he was really, really, really good. There's a lot of players that have done both the longevity with amazing statistics. I mean, there's a punter in the Hall of Fame, Ray Guy, who was a fantastic special teamer. We just saw, as Bear fans and NFL fans abroad, Devin Hester get into the Hall of Fame for being the greatest kick returner, the greatest punt returner, at least one of them of all time. Certainly the last bastion of that kind of era of electric returner, because the rules have changed around a little bit with how kickoffs are handled. He was somebody that would cause head coaches to completely change a game
Tony
plan,
Dungy.
and was a weapon for the Chicago Bears because of what he was doing for their field position. Of, you can kick it to a guy who can take it all the way to the house, or we're just going to pooch punt it out of bounds. We'll give them the extra however many yards, and a Bears offense could take advantage of that. In a similar fashion, I think, Charles Tillman, I don't think this, I know this because I hear it pretty much every single week. The peanut punch, the forced fumble, where it's a defensive back, a linebacker, a whomever who is getting a one-arm wrap-up tackle and with the other hand going for the ball, or one guy who's standing up a runner. Second guy is going to punch out the ball because he really kind of changed how the position was played. I mean, there's a lot of, I'm going to get to the trivia in one moment.
Sure.
As far as his other stats, just as a defensive back, I mean, he's in the top 100 for interceptions, 38, not super duper high. I mean, there's a lot of guys that
he's like fifth in forced fumbles, Tom.
Yeah,
or is that the trivia question?
That's going to be getting into the trivia question.
Oh,
I mean,
okay. I'm going to get it right, by the way, because I'm on top of Peanut.
Oh, gotcha.
Stats.
Now he's got 9 non-offensive touchdowns, which is pretty good considering he's not a returner. I went to Pro Football Reference for this one, and it's kind of difficult to find, just straight up interception and fumble returns because it just counted as a non-return touchdown. So that includes Devin Hester kick returns, Deion Sanders, for example.
The most pick sixes, by the way, is Rod Woodson. If that's your trivia question.
Yeah, he's on there as well. But getting into my trivia question, Common, is can you name the top 10 leaders in forced fumbles? And this stat dates back to 1993 as the counting stat.
Yes.
So there are plenty of guys prior. But you can probably name the top 10.
I can tell you who's first. Robert Mathis, right?
He is number one. Yes, at
Robert Mathis is
forced
first.
Fumbles.
I think Peanut Tillman's like fifth, maybe.
He is tied for sixth with 44. So as a cornerback, for example,
yes,
he is sixth on the list.
John Abraham, is that the guy's name? Former Jet.
John Abraham. He's third on the list, tied with another former Colt.
Yeah, Dwight Freeney.
Dwight Freeney's there. We've got.
I'll give you some more guys. I can name more before clues. Jason Taylor, I think, would be in the top 10.
He's number 5.
Okay, so I have what? I have 1, 3, 5, and 6.
You got 1. The 2 guys tied for 3, 5. You got 1 of 6. It's a tie. Peanut Tillman is tied with this NFC North defensive line.
Oh, Reggie White, of course.
Not Reggie White, no.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to name some other guys that I think are on this list. Bruce Smith, maybe?
Bruce Smith is at 8. He's right below Charles Tillman by 1 forced fumble.
Okay. So how many do I have? Bruce Smith, Tillman, Abraham.
You're missing 10, 9, and 2 on the list.
So I already got 7. See, I'm doing pretty good with no clues, Tom.
And you're missing the guy who's tied with Tillman at 6. So you're missing 4 of the top 10.
Well, I think probably in the top 10. You're talking about NFC North. Are we talking an 85 Bear?
Not an 85 Bear. If you're thinking Richard Dent, he's at 11. He's just outside. But of course,
Richard Dent is 11?
Richard Dent's 11, but of course the statistic was not kept his entire career, so he would have likely been
Warren
higher.
Sapp, I think, could be a guy that's in there.
Not Sapp. We do have a former Bear at number 2.
Oh, yeah, of course. This is Jared Allen.
Not Jared Allen.
Oh, Julius Peppers. I'm sorry. Julius
Peppers at number 2. Yeah, we've got a former Chief at 9.
Former Chief at 9. Well, Jared Allen was a Chief and a Bear. How about that? But that's not who it is. Tamba Hali. Is that a name?
That is a name. He's down at 20, though. No, this guy...
Neil Smith?
not Neil Smith. We wouldn't have seen him play because he was retired in 1999.
Oh, Willie Lanier.
No, it's Derek Thomas, if that name
Yeah,
rings a
Derek
bell.
Thomas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have got
Yep,
that.
he's on there. And then we've got a Minnesota Viking, and then I actually don't even know who this player is.
Alan Page.
Not Alan Page.
Okay.
Who's I've literally
How's
never heard of this guy, and he's in the Hall of Fame. Played for New
Carl
Orleans.
Eller?
Not Eller. I have no idea who this
Um,
guy is. Number 10 is a guy by the name of Ricky Jackson. I'm sorry to say, I
yeah,
do
I know
not.
Ricky Jackson. He's a
Oh, do
Saint
you?
legend.
Oh,
Of
I did
course, I
not.
know Ricky Jackson. Well,
I
you
didn't.
know, I work now, Tom. I'll tell you what. You know me as a sports nerd, but then
Mhm.
you work for an autograph memorabilia company.
Oh,
There's
this is
so many
true.
autographs I pull. Ricky Jackson, 57 for the Saints. I believe he played with the
Hmm.
Niners as well. Maybe I know Saints was his main
Yeah, for a
team.
couple of years, yeah.
Yeah, Ricky Jackson. He's really really good
But
actually.
yeah, you'd have to go down to 20 to find the next cornerback in Charles Woodson, who had 33 forced fumbles. So that was after or a good margin behind Charles Tillman. The next closest just defensive back was a safety, Brian Dawkins, had 36. So
Makes sense.
suffice it to say that we're talking about essentially a bunch of defensive ends, a bunch of edge rushers who are getting to the quarterback, getting a lot of strip fumbles. We're talking about a cornerback who's out in space against a receiver or a tight end who's got a bunch of open grass around them, and he's able to
Hmm.
make these plays and really change the mentality for a lot of players at a lot of different levels. I mean, the Philadelphia Eagles, they had one of their video guys this season just put together every single Peanut Tillman forced fumble in his career. All the coaches watched it on a loop. And then they said, okay, we're going to have our players, we're going to have our defense, our special teams watch this on a loop because this is how we make game changing plays. So I think if you're a player that changes how a game or a position or a mentality is done in the league, I mean, he's certainly up there as one of the more influential guys. And the fact that we hear his name every single weekend, that's gold jacket worthy for me.
Yeah, I think only has like one Pro Bowl too, Tom, which is such a crime against
Hmm.
NFL players.
Because he wasn't appreciated for what he was doing at that position. I know cornerback is like, oh well, we expect interceptions, for example, which again he had I think 38 on his career, not a bad number.
More than Darrelle
But
Revis.
he was ahead of his time as far as being a difference maker on a football field.
Agreed. Uh, can you name the top five? My trivia question, and
Mhm.
I had it written down a while back. That I remember what it was. Most rushing yards in Super Bowl history. Top five running backs. It says
Mm.
cumulative rushing yards in Super Bowl history. So not the most in the game, the most for a career.
Most for a career in the Super Bowl. Interesting. Because it's got to be somebody that's been there a couple few times, which
Yep.
makes me think a little bit of a dynasty. So I'm going to go
Yes.
Emmett Smith is
He's
on
number
this list.
3 on this list.
Number 3 on the list. Interesting. Because, yeah, the Cowboys had a good stretch of runs there. Would Franco Harris and the Pittsburgh Steelers be on there?
Number 1,
Number 1.
4
Let's
Super
see.
Bowls in the 70s.
Um, Marcus Allen for the Raiders. Is he in this
That's
list?
a good guess because he had that long touchdown run, not
Hmm.
Marcus Allen.
Not Marcus Allen. He was only in a couple Super Bowls, but Terrell Davis.
Earl Davis, yeah, he's number 4. Had
All right, so
259 rush yards over 2 games.
I've got Harris, Smith, Davis.
Now we got to go old school,
Hmm.
guys that you would not
Ooh,
have
okay.
watched play.
Um,
Although I
I
think
mean,
you
this
know
is
both of these guys. They're both Hall of
probably
Fame running backs.
this is a classic Sporkle guess here. Larry Sonka for the
Yeah,
Miami
he's number
Dolphins.
3. Number
He's
2, excuse
on
me. Franco
number
Harris
2.
1, Larry Sonka 2. Franco Harris, by the way, Tom,
Hmm.
354 yards over 4 games. I've got my phone right here. Larry Zonka,
Hmm.
297 over 3 games. Emmett
Mm.
Smith, 289 over 3 games. Terrell Davis, 259 over 2 games.
2
Then
games,
the,
yeah.
the fifth guy, 230 over 2 games. Can you name him? Hall of Fame running back. I believe he won both Super Bowls he played in, I believe.
Oh, so that knocks out. I was going to guess Thurman Thomas for the Bills because he went to 4 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Won both of them.
Let me confirm that correct. He had
Hmm.
166 yards in one Super Bowl alone, which is a lot.
Oh, I'm going to go like old school. Paul Hornung for the Green Bay Packers.
Packers, nope, not Paul Hornung.
It wouldn't be Fred Taylor, I don't think, because he played fullback for them.
That Super Bowl MVP, one of the. You know what? I stand corrected. I was mistaken, Tom.
Did not win both of them?
Did not win both of them. Interesting.
And we got to go old school for this guy.
Yes. Pro Football Hall of Famer. So he's a bit.
Sure.
You would know the name, but obviously, like I said, old school name. Led the league in rushing touchdowns twice. And over 11,000 yards for his career.
Not Jim Brown, right? I'm going super
Not Jim
out.
Brown.
Not Jim Brown. Walter Payton was only in 1 Super Bowl.
This guy played. I mean, he did play in Walter Payton's era, a little bit younger than Walter Payton, but in the same
era.
Payton's era and the end of the era before Walter Payton.
Gotcha.
So basically after Jim Brown and between Brown and Payton, but he did play in Walter Payton's era for sure. But he retired right when Walter Payton was hitting his peak.
It wouldn't be Earl Campbell, would it?
Not Earl Campbell. He wouldn't have played in the Super Bowl with the Oilers.
Oh, that's right. That's right. AFC or NFC? I'll ask for a clue on that one. NFC.
Well, he did briefly play in the AFC as well.
But he was on the NFC side of things.
For most of his career, including the Super Bowl MVP that he got.
Yeah, my late 70s to early 80s Super Bowl history, not great.
Late 70s, early 80s, that's what you're looking for here.
Right.
It was
I think the Giants were great then.
83 Super Bowl, 82-83 season. And this was the Super Bowl that Marino lost, I believe.
And I see, I'm not even remembering who beat the Dolphins for that Super Bowl.
I
don't know. I might have to tap out on this one.
I'll give you a couple clues that might give it away.
Okay. I'll take them.
Played for a franchise that used to be good, was bad, and is now good again. I don't know how much that helps.
Is it Washington?
Yes.
Oh, is it Riggins?
John Riggins.
John Riggins, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a name that I would know, but like I just.
No, it's again, we didn't watch him play. I got you.
Exactly, yeah.
All right, so I have 2 statements of the week. I know we should have. Your transition made a lot of sense. I forgot what I put down for my trivia question.
That's good.
Apologies, but I'm going to go with the Super Bowl one last. Let's finish with the Super Bowl last. So just real quick, I know it's not in the rundown, but it's a sports show. I know it's a Super Bowl preview show, but we did have a massive trade go down last night, late in the night. Lakers getting Luka Doncic, the Mavs getting Anthony Davis, a blockbuster trade. A lot of the ESPN, a lot of the journalists, a lot of the fans, a lot of the players saying quite possibly the biggest trade in NBA history, and very, very shocking. So Lakers also get Maxi Kleber, Markieff Morris. The Mavs also get Max Christie in a first-round pick, but the headlines, obviously, Luka Doncic to the Lakers, Anthony Davis to the Mavericks. Luka didn't know about this deal. Luka didn't request a trade. The Mavericks wanted the deal, Luka. Reports now saying there was another team they approached. That team said no. Anthony Davis didn't know about it. LeBron James didn't know about it. Heard about it at dinner. So just a wild, wild trade. I think this is exciting. I think it's exciting. You look at the NBA, look at the MLB. They are struggling compared to the NFL. NBA, I know the ratings are down a little bit this season. This is a big deal for the league. Could get a little more excitement for the NBA. I'd argue even the global audience, people, in Europe, across the world. Lakers have a big brand. Luka's got a big brand. So I also think this is a good trade for the Lakers for sure in the long term. The
Mhm.
short term is a different story. I don't think either team's going to win the championship this season or make it. Obviously, the whole Luka and LeBron is very interesting because they're both kind of the same player. They're very, very ball dominant. They're guys that can score, they can pass. Let's see how that chemistry works on that team. Because it's kind of like weird, like in some ways, I know Davis has been really good the last couple of years, but I think you look at overall in terms of everything that LeBron does for the team, I would still say LeBron is the best player in the Lakers. He's been one, Davis is 1A. I think possibly, and we'll see how this works, possibly for the first time in his career, LeBron might not be the best player on the team. I don't know. Again, LeBron probably, even at this stage of his career, probably a better defensive player. That's one of the knocks on Luka. The Mavs not happy with his lack of defense. He's not in tip-top physical shape. If you hear some rumors around the NBA, although with that said, the guy, I mean, he got him to the finals last year.
Mhm.
So there's clearly something behind closed doors we don't know about. There's something in that relationship that hasn't worked. There's also reports now that Anthony Davis expressed in the media a couple weeks ago he wanted to be a 4. He wanted the Lakers to get a center so he can play the 4, not the 5. That relationship obviously a little bit strained as well. I know that right now the Mavs already have Kyrie, who's a really good player, who can be the perimeter guy. AD could be the guy down low. They got Clay to shoot the ball. So, for them in the short term, I think it works. But I think the Lakers absolutely got a great deal here. Luka
Mm.
Doncic is one of the best players in the NBA, one of the best scorers. He's a guy that could set up his teammates. He could probably learn from LeBron a little bit more on how to be a leader, a little bit more on how to give a little bit more effort. LeBron's going to hold Luka accountable. That's the thing about being the one guy like Luka. You're the clear number one on the team. No one's really holding you accountable. LeBron James will hold him accountable. And LeBron, as amazing as he still is, for me, Tom, no question, still a top 10 player in the NBA. We saw that in the Olympics, of course. But LeBron is, as we know, on the maybe not even the back 9, the back 4 of his career,
Mm.
maybe less, could be the back 1. I
Yeah,
think,
back like 2.
Anthony Davis has had so many injuries. Anthony Davis, terrific defensive player. He can score. He's a good player. He's more of a number 2. If you want to build a championship team, Davis is he's a 2 or like a 1A, like maybe like Kyrie
Mhm.
and Davis share the spotlight. I don't think
Yes.
he's the number 1 guy to win you a championship. I think post LeBron, the Lakers were not going to win a championship with Davis. Luka does have some work to do. Does have some maturing to do. He's not a finished product. He's still only like 25 years old. I think
Mhm.
the Lakers got their next mega star for the next 10, 15 years. I mean, NBA is all about stars. The Lakers are all about stars. When have the Lakers not had a star? It was Kareem. I mean, it was what? Jerry West, Will Chamberlain, Kareem, Magic, Shaq, Kobe, LeBron. And now Luka's the next guy. So I don't know if the LeBron and Luka thing will work in the short term. I would lean that it will, just 'cause I think both guys want to win. But in terms of long term, this is where it's a slam dunk for the Lakers. I think it's a great long term deal.
Mhm.
They got their next superstar. Definitely big deal for the Lakers to get Luka Doncic seemingly out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, in a league that has seen 5 first-round picks go for Rudy Gobert, or 4, I think, give or take, for Michael Bridges, like, to get a player like Luka Doncic, yes, you are giving up Anthony Davis, who is still one of the premier talents in the league. This feels pretty light for the Dallas Mavericks. I got to say, I think that if you called up, the rest of the NBA, you probably could have gotten a quote unquote better offer for him as a player. This feels like there's something else going on. There's still some reporting to be done on this one because it did come out of nowhere. The Mavericks got to the finals last year. I think that if you want to be kind of optimistic and say this is a basketball only decision, that there was a limitation to what Kyrie and Luka were able to do against a really, really good Boston Celtics team, and in a playoff setting that not necessarily fluky, but it's not every year that you see a 4 seed get all the way to the NBA Finals. And this kind of feels like another season where the Mavericks, as presently, or I guess recently, presently constituted, were kind of on that same track, that same trajectory. So they were looking to shake some things up a little bit. I think maybe some of the contract stuff comes into play. I think that the Lakers win out in a big way because now that Luke has been traded, he's no longer eligible for that 5 year, I think it's like a $355 million supermax
And the
contract.
Mavs didn't want to pay that, which is weird that
They,
they wouldn't want that. But like you said, there's
yeah,
something going on there.
I think that like some of the whispers or the easy rumors to connect have to do with his conditioning level and stuff like that, which I think is fairly simple or easy to debunk. I mean, look at Nikola Jokic. He doesn't look the part. Even to a certain extent, a Patrick Mahomes doesn't look the part of a prime
Look
athlete,
at
and yet
Luca's
they're the two
numbers,
best at
Tom.
what they
Like
do. That's what I'm saying. It's
he
like
got
they don't
bigger, but he got better.
they
You
they
know,
they
it's
don't
crazy.
look like an Adonis. Like there are only so many people in the world that can look like LeBron James at his peak level of fitness, which continues on to this day. But this is
Ridiculous.
one where the Lakers went out not just because they didn't really have to give up a whole heck of a lot as far as still having pieces to make future moves. But now, when it comes time to sign Luka to the most amount of money that they can sign him, which, by the way, I still think it's silly that there is a cap on what an individual player can learn or earn, even in a salary capped sport. Um, I mean, that just makes life easier for the Lakers to say, okay, we have that much more money available to us to go get a second star when LeBron James says, okay, I'm hanging it up, or hey, I'm moving on to my next venture. It's going to be that much easier for the Lakers to load up with Luka and whoever is going to be the star for them. So this is one where it just is a head scratcher. It's a real puzzler, and it's definitely a bang to kicking off the NBA trade season as the deadline is coming up on us very, very quickly. Great way for the NBA to take advantage of the NFL being off for a week. There's a lot. There's a lot there built into this, but I mean, I can't disagree with the Lakers. Absolutely win on this one, and
Yes,
all they had to do was pick up the phone. They weren't even like calling around asking about Luca.
I
All they had to
know.
do was answer, say, hey, what's going on? It's like we want to trade Luca. It's like
Yes. Okay.
okay,
What do you want? There's
go
not a
for it,
guy on our
everybody.
team that we don't want to trade. Even like LeBron, obviously, LeBron's
Yeah,
older. So I mean, if it was LeBron instead of Day, like it's a no-brainer. Like there's not like you give up
yeah.
whatever
Like
they want for Luca.
I know the
There's not a
optics
guy
would be
that's more
bad.
valuable on their roster.
I would absolutely swap Luca for LeBron if I were the Lakers. Like if that were the proposed deal, I
Well,
know it would
yeah,
look
because
bad,
LeBron
but
LeBron is older. It's
yeah,
yeah, I agree,
yeah.
Tom. We're talking about 25 versus 40, 41. I mean,
Oh yeah.
you want to debate who's better right now, you can have that debate. But in
Hmm.
terms of who's more valuable long term to your franchise, you got to go with the younger guy.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. But
that must have been a pleasant surprise, so to speak.
oh yeah. That's a
So
that's a great way to start out of February, let me tell you. But back to
sure.
the Super Bowl comment because I know
Yeah,
you've got
real
a
quick,
part
statement of
due.
the week. This is, not super bold, but I think it's something that a lot of people need to hear, Tom. I
Hmm.
think it's kind of almost sort of in line with what I said last week, but yeah, I'm a Chiefs fan, but Tom, I'm not saying I was super pumped about it,
Hmm.
but the sports historian in me did really appreciate Tom Brady and the Patriots because it's history, right? The amount of winning they had over such a long span of years. I think same thing with the Yankees in the late 90s, early 2000s. Like that's an iconic team. The 90s Bulls, iconic team. You look at the Celtics in the 60s back in the day. I mean, heck, even the Warriors more recently in the NBA. I'm not saying you have to cheer for it, but take some time to appreciate what the Kansas City Chiefs are doing right now. And I would argue what they're doing right now is one of the most impressive things we've ever seen in sports, just because you look at I mentioned the Bulls, the Celtics, the Lakers, the Warriors, the Yankees, even like this is over 7-game, 5-game series. We know very well over a 7-game series, things tend to bounce towards the better team usually. Baseball's a little flukier, hockey's a little bit flukier, but especially, in basketball, the better team will almost always win over a 7-game series. This is one game. Kansas City, one game. They could have been knocked out in any one of these games. And so many of them were close. The Niners Super Bowl, the Eagles Super Bowl, the Bills seemingly every time they play in the playoffs, the Bengals playoff game that they barely won. I mean, the run they're on right now is just absolutely incredible. I showed you stats last week. Statistically speaking, this last season, the Chiefs were middle of the pack. Years past, even lower middle of the pack than penalties. It's not because of the officials. It's because what they do. And even though that Josh Allen fourth down play, maybe he made it, maybe he didn't. There's a lot of different angles out there. I think his body definitely made it. The football, not 100% clear where it was at the time. I would lean that it was probably a first down. But just like in every game, Tom, you can find Chiefs Twitter. There's so many calls that were missed that didn't go for the Chiefs. The Bills found so many calls over the course of a game. Things even out usually. But for Kansas City to be in 3 straight Super Bowls, to win 3 straight in a row, and you look at their team, they have not been dominating these teams. Actually, they're probably their most dominant season they had, Tom, was the year they lost the Super Bowl against the Bucks. They were really, really good that year, just blowing teams out. Very, very explosive offense, unstoppable, right? The Eagles Super Bowl win, their offense was unstoppable. This team, by and large, the last couple of years, has been just getting by, which makes it even more impressive because the amount of parity in the NFL, the amount of good teams, the amount of talent Kansas City has, without question, they're one of the most talented teams. But you can make a case that there might be 2 or 3 teams who are at least as good, if not better on paper than the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
So for them to do this run, to potentially become the first team ever to win 3 straight Super Bowls, don't boycott the Super Bowl. Don't hate on this. You want to cheer against them, cheer against them. But appreciate it, Tom. I grew up a Peyton Manning fan. I cheered against Brady. I'm a Mahomes fan. I cheered against Brady. But do I appreciate Tom Brady? Yes. As much as I hate to say it, I appreciate Tom Brady. He is the greatest quarterback of all time, although I think Mahomes could change that narrative in 5, 6, 10, 15 years. But I appreciate Tom Brady, the football player, and what he did. Doesn't mean I like him. Doesn't mean I'm a fan of his. I mean, in some ways I am, some ways I'm not, but I appreciate what Tom Brady did for the NFL. You guys at home, even if you don't like the Chiefs, you don't like Patrick Mahomes, you should appreciate what we're seeing here. It is history. And by the way, it was the most watched AFC Championship game of all time. All these keyboard warriors, Tom, claiming they're going to boycott the Super Bowl. You're not boycotting the Super Bowl. You're going to watch the Super Bowl. It's going to be a record-setting Super Bowl. And I'm sorry, guys, back home. You're going to be left very disappointed when the Chiefs once again lift the Vince Lombardi trophy and get the first three-peat in the history of the NFL in the Super Bowl era. Packers got some NFL championships. A little bit harder now with more teams. In the Super Bowl era, it's never happened before. If something has never happened, even if you don't like it, appreciate it. You got to appreciate what they're doing.
To my knowledge, there's only been one successful Super Bowl boycott that I can think of.
Which one?
And that was the year that New Orleans lost to the Rams on that blatant pass interference call. And I'm pretty sure Nielsen numbers backed up that nobody in New Orleans, Louisiana watched the Super Bowl that year. I'm pretty sure
That was
that's
also
literally
like a
the
boring game, though. It was like a low-scoring game, so it was one of those where if you turned it on and you saw the score, you might be inclined
Mhm.
to turn it off. I think it was like the 13-3 against the Rams,
That
right,
was
for
a
the
fantastic game,
Patriots.
by the way. That
It
was
was
an
what?
incredible game. That was an incredible game,
Oh,
by the way. I will not tolerate
I was
this
bored out of
Rams
my mind, Tom.
Patriots slander.
Bored
I mean,
out of
I
my
I
mind.
I I don't understand how somebody can watch and enjoy soccer where it's up and down a pitch for 90 minutes for just hoping for like
Three to
one or
four
two goals.
scores. We had like what? No, one touchdown the whole game,
Yeah,
one
and
score
field goals. Yeah, and it was
versus
up.
three to
It was
four.
it was it was moving that ball back and up and down the field,
Oh,
and defenses making stands, and
ugly.
that one touchdown felt so precious. I'm not
So
tolerate
now
this
you're
slander.
actually talking to yourself why you should like soccer. But anyway, oh,
Yeah, I suppose so, but that's not
that's
going
a
to happen.
debate for another day, right? All right.
Yeah,
Well,
it's one where I'm firmly entrenched. I don't know if there's any logical argument that's going to make me switch over.
I got you.
So,
All right. Well, great show, Tom, as always. We'll see when we reconvene
mhm.
for the next show. I know we're going to probably, with our work schedules, take a little bit of a break. I'm not sure if we'll end up doing a recap show or not for the Super Bowl. I do know we have March Madness around the corner. We'll do some March Madness shows, NBA playoffs. Going to be a lot of fun, but hopefully for all our listeners and viewers, you enjoy the Super Bowl, you enjoyed the show. I cannot wait for it, Tom. I'll be texting you, giving you smack talk and everything. It's going to be a lot of fun. But as always, Tom, thank you so much for co-hosting, and we'll see you when we see you.